Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, if you've been following the industry lately, particularly those massive updates we saw drop in mid-2026, you know it feels a lot like drinking from a fire hose right now. It's been an absolutely chaotic week of tech news. So today, we're cutting through the noise. We're going to trace what we call the ripple effect, going from the raw foundational code all the way up to these massive multi-billion-dollar market shifts just to understand what is actually happening across the board.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to track this ripple effect through the big model updates, Apple's entry into the chat, the competing manifestos driving all of this, the business of AI, and finally, what your big takeaway should be. Let's dive right in.
All right, part one, the big model updates. We are starting right at the foundation.
So the foundational model race hasn't slowed down for a single second. Right now, we're watching a really fascinating battle play out. On one hand, Anthropic just dropped their highly anticipated Claude Mythos and Fable 5 models, which are completely pushing the absolute limits of single model capability. But meanwhile, Google is firing back with this relentless multi-pronged shipping strategy. It's two very different approaches fighting for dominance at the absolute bleeding edge of compute.
And instead of just staring at benchmark charts to understand this, think about this actual workflow. This is the reality of Anthropic's new Fable 5. You just prompt it with some basic game mechanics, and it entirely generates the code, the whole repository, for a playable game called Cube Basher. And then, you literally just run it and play. The friction between a thought in your head and a functional piece of software is practically vanishing right before our eyes. That is the raw power of these new models.
Now, in stark contrast to Anthropic's focused power play, Google is essentially blanketing the entire market with highly tuned, very specific tools. They've pushed advanced research capabilities to Notebook LM, making it an absolute powerhouse for synthesizing your data. They dropped Gemini 3.5 to break down language barriers in real time with Live Translate, and on top of that, they advanced their image generation with Diffusion Gemma. They are aggressively hitting every single user touchpoint simultaneously.
Which brings us nicely to Section 2. Apple enters the chat.
You know, it's so incredibly easy to get lost in the developer tools, the GitHub repos, and the underlying code. But as technologists, we really have to pause and ask ourselves, how does the average person, the person just walking around holding a smartphone, actually experience all this compounding intelligence?
Well, Apple's answer is Apple Intelligence. And what's brilliant here is they aren't treating AI like some separate clunky app you have to go out of your way to open. It's all about deep operating system integration. They're taking a completely revamped Siri and quietly weaving these massive AI capabilities seamlessly into the background of your everyday life. And crucially, they are leaning heavily on on-device processing to ensure your privacy. This is without a doubt the ultimate consumer-friendly deployment of foundation models.
Moving right along to Section 3. Competing AI manifestos. Let's look at the philosophies actually driving this tech.
Up at the C-suite level, we are seeing two very distinct blueprints for our future emerge. On one side, you've got Anthropic's Dario Amodei. His policy on AI exponential is laser-focused on mapping out safety and alignment as these models scale up at mind-bending exponential speeds. Contrasting that directly is OpenAI's Sam Altman and his built-to-benefit vision. This approach prioritizes rapid deployment and creating the actual structures needed to ensure the technology delivers broad benefits to humanity. So two heavyweights, two very distinct blueprints.
If we look closely at Anthropic's stance, their safety-first architecture is so strict that their policy actually includes this concept of downgrade transparency. Essentially, if these exponential risks start compounding a little too quickly for comfort, they're willing to pull back or downgrade access to their models just to ensure things remain perfectly aligned. It's a highly cautious, safety-driven philosophy.
Conversely, OpenAI's manifesto frames their core mission quite a bit differently. They are geared around aggressively pushing that technological frontier. Their fundamental argument is that to ensure AI actually benefits all of humanity, you have to actively build, deploy, and distribute those benefits out into the real world. They want to get the tech out there so society can adapt and build on top of it in real time. Okay, Section 4, the business of AI. Because these competing philosophies are moving serious, tangible money.
$75 billion. Let that sink in for a second. That is the massive valuation attached to the SpaceX and Starlink IPO chatter that hit this week. When you have this sheer level of capital flying around adjacent tech sectors, it completely reshapes the gravity of the whole global economy. And it is all part of this larger, massive technological supercycle we're in right now.
And this ecosystem, it's moving in every single direction at once. We've got OpenAI preparing an S1 filing, which signals a massive leap toward the public markets. At the exact same time, the tools themselves are becoming active agents. ChatGPT is now integrating deeply into workflows, capable of sending your emails directly. The crypto markets are adapting, with Coinbase launching features specifically designed for autonomous AI agents to transact. And incredibly, software giant Midjourney is now teasing a leap into physical hardware. Software, finance, hardware, the whole shebang is shifting simultaneously.
Finally, Section 5, the big takeaway. Let's zoom out and find the overarching signal in all this noise.
Here's the thing. The true separator for your success isn't placing a bet on whether Anthropic, Google, or OpenAI wins the model war. Surviving this chaotic landscape and the weeks to come requires developing what we call AI fluency. You need to grasp how a model writes code, how Apple quietly deploys it to the masses, and how it triggers a $75 billion market shift. That holistic understanding, that is your ultimate leverage.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder today. As these technologies rapidly break out of corporate manifestos and start reshaping the physical world around us, what are you actively doing to ensure you remain fluent? The ripple effect is already here, guys, and the wave is only getting larger. Make sure you're ready to ride it. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.